Out story today called The Merchant and the Genie from 1001 Nights book. Let's begin. In a land of deserts, trade routes, and bustling marketplaces, a tale of magic and fate begins. This is the story of a merchant, a simple man whose life was forever changed by an unexpected encounter with a powerful and vengeful genie. Our story begins with a successful merchant. He was a man of wealth, but also of hard work. His travels took him to far-off lands, selling and trading goods to provide for his family. One day, after completing a long journey, he found himself wandering the desert. Tired from the heat of the sun, the merchant stopped to rest by a small oasis. As he sat beneath the shade of a tree, he took out some food to eat, some bread and dates. As he finished his meal, he absent-mindedly threw the pits of the dates on the ground. Little did he know, this simple action would summon a terrible force. Out of nowhere, the sky darkened, and the earth shook beneath him. A towering genie appeared before the merchant, furious and vengeful. With a booming voice, the genie declared that the merchant had committed a grave crime. The merchant, terrified, begged for mercy and asked what he had done to deserve such wrath. The genie replied, "You have killed my son. The pit of the date you carelessly threw struck my son in the chest and took his life. Now, I must take yours in return." The merchant was shocked. How could something so small and unintended lead to such a grave consequence? Desperate to save his life, he pleaded with the genie for mercy. But the genie was unmoved. "Prepare to die," he said, "for it is written that I must avenge my son." Knowing he had little time left, the merchant made one final request. He asked the genie for just enough time to return home and settle his affairs, to say goodbye to his family, pay his debts, and ensure that his loved ones would be cared for. He promised to return within 1 year to face his fate. Surprisingly, the genie agreed. He granted the merchant 1 year, on the condition that if he did not return, his family would suffer the same fate. The merchant swore to honor his word and rushed back home, heart heavy with fear and sadness. For the next year, the merchant worked tirelessly to settle his accounts and prepare his family for his departure. Though they didn't know of the terrible fate awaiting him, they sensed something was wrong. The merchant's heart ached as he looked at his children, knowing that this might be the last time he would ever see them. But the merchant was a man of honor, and as the year came to a close, he prepared to keep his promise to the genie. With a heavy heart, he left his home and journeyed back to the oasis where his fate awaited him. On his way to the oasis, the merchant met 3 old men, each accompanied by an unusual animal. Curious about the merchant's sorrowful expression, they asked him where he was headed. The merchant, with no reason to hide the truth, told them about his encounter with the genie and the promise he had made to return. The old men, moved by his tale, decided to accompany the merchant. They knew the dangers of facing a genie's wrath, but they also had stories of their own, stories that might just save the merchant's life. When the merchant and the old men arrived at the oasis, the genie appeared once again, ready to take the merchant's life. But the first old man stepped forward and made a bold offer. He said, "O mighty genie, I will tell you a story so wondrous that if you find it more astonishing than the merchant's crime, will you grant him 1/3 of his life?" The old man then began to tell the tale of how his wife was transformed into a deer through a magical curse and how he had come to care for her in that form. The genie, fascinated by the tale, agreed that it was indeed astonishing and granted the merchant 1/3 of his life. The second and third old men then told their stories, each one filled with magic, betrayal, and redemption. Each tale was so incredible that the genie agreed to grant another 1/3 of the merchant's life after hearing each one. In the end, the genie was so amazed by the stories of the 3 old men that he decided to spare the merchant's life entirely. What began as a moment of doom turned into a miraculous salvation, all thanks to the power of storytelling. The merchant, filled with gratitude, returned home to his family, forever changed by his encounter with the genie and the kindness of 3 strangers. And so, we are reminded that even in the darkest moments, The power of words, kindness, and compassion can bring light and hope.